What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Tactical Advantage. Today what we're going to be working on, and this is a Tactical Advantage 007 in our branded gun builds. So what we're going to do in this video is install a set of excess sights. And the way I'm going to handle this install is I'm not going to use my sight pushers or anything like that. We're going to go old school with just punches and stuff like that to remove and install the new sights. And I figured that'd help you guys. You know, Glocks are really one of the easier handguns to change sights on. They're not extremely tight in their dovetails, and their front sights are either staked or bolted in. So pretty simple stuff. So let's get to it. So first off, let's take a look at the excess sight systems. If you guys aren't really familiar, excess is like the lollipop sight. There's a couple other names for it, but really it comprises a very large front sight dot and kind of sort of a wide notch for the rear sight with basically a straight up spike. So when you line up that front sight, you have a very big dot and it looks like a lollipop. One thing that's pretty cool about what XS does, you know, number one, they're reasonably priced, and they come with a little Delrin punch, some Loctite, and a Glock front sight removal tool. So really it comes with everything you need to do the install. Really good instructions as well. You know, there's sights out there that cost almost twice as much and don't come with anything. So for the apprentice guy or the guy just starting to do his own mods, this is definitely something you can do for yourself, especially with a package like this. This is also a tritium set, so it's also a night sight set. Should be pretty cool. So let's get started. So first things first, I thought I would show you the instructions, illustrated. You know, really explains everything you're going to need to do the job. Really cool. You know, these are probably one of the better instruction sets I've seen out there. And we're going to install it like the instructions say. I'm not going to break out my sight pushers or, you know, break out any gunsmithing tools really. The only thing I'm really going to try and jump into is my trusty little hot gunsmithing hammer. The package itself came with a little Delrin punch. If you don't use that, obviously a brass punch is the way you want to go. Whatever you do, don't use a steel punch trying to push out sights. That's going to just tear things up. If you use a brass punch and you mar something, you can usually just wipe it off with gun oil and it doesn't really pull the finish off. Delrin obviously isn't going to do anything. That's a plastic. And like I said before, Glock sights are relatively easy to uninstall. This one's actually got a staked front sight, so we're gonna have to get some needle nose, pinch that, pull the little the stake piece out, and we're just gonna drift out the rear sight. So on to the next. So here we're gonna go ahead and drift out the rear sight. As you can see, I got a block of wood here. I'm not gonna use my bench blocks. I want this to be as close as to what you guys will have at home as virtually possible. So we got the little Delrin punch. We'll just set our slide over to the rear a little bit so the sight's got somewhere to go. And we'll give her a couple taps and see if we can get her to start coming out. So as you can see, we just really gave her a couple taps and she's already starting to come out. So at this point, you just want to get a good bite on it and finish drifting her out. And there you go. There's your rear sight. So now we'll go ahead and get ready to remove the front sight. I don't know if you can see there, but when the front sight's staked on, basically it's pressed in with a tool that compresses the sight foot into the frame. That's polymer, so really all you need is a pair of needle nose pliers. And basically you'll go in and compress it where it's going into the frame. And she'll pop right out for you. Just like that. So now we've got the sights removed. We need to go ahead and clean all this up. You see some gun oil there. You want to clean out that rear dovetail very well too. And Usually I'll do that with a good degreaser, or alcohol even works fine. So let's get that done. Alright, so now I got some alcohol wipes, which I find to be super handy, you know, in the shop when you're working on stuff. Instead of having a bottle of alcohol or a bottle of degreaser, these wipes work really well. Really what we're trying to do here is just get rid of all that gun oil, all the contaminants that made their way under the sights that can, you know, keep the Loctite that we're going to use later on in the install from setting correctly. So we just want to make sure we get in the dovetails really well. Nothing to it. But this is not the time to be lazy. You know, if you want a good, well adhered set of sights. And we're about ready to do the install. So first thing, we'll take a look at the front sight post. Again, you'll see it's bolted. The excess kit comes with this little tool that just fits on that bolt. And you can loosen it up and take her out. So now we've got the bolt removed from the front sight. Again, excess uses Trigicon for all their night sights. So really what you're doing here is just setting it in, making sure there's no obstructions, making sure everything looks like it's going to fit well. Look how big that front dot is. Awesome. I love these sights. Take a look at the bottom, make sure everything's going to line up pretty. You know, there's not going to be any issues. And basically, we just want to make sure everything looks like it's going to be good. So at this point, we're going to use a little bit of thread locker. Get that area where we're going to seat the sight. A little bit on the side as well. And remember, you know, there's not a lot of tension on these parts. You know, so once you get it in, the thread locker is really your friend as far as having everything stay seated and stay where it needs to stay. So we've got that kind of taken care of. We'll get a drop on the bolt and we'll be ready to get this bad boy installed. So you can see, again, excess supplies you with the tool. So we'll go ahead and get it started. Be very careful, you don't want to throw anything off in this step. Once you get that bolt started, you really don't have to put a ton of torque on this. You just want it to be tight, and you want your thread locker to do the work. It's always good when you do this as well. After a few hundred rounds, you come back in and make sure nothing loosened up on you. So we'll just get a little bit more torque on that, and we should be good to go. Now at this point, you're going to take Q-tips or whatever you have available. We're going to clean up that extra thread locker we have there. You don't want to leave that on the slide. That will dry hard and it'll leave a mark. So now we'll go ahead and get into installing the rear sight. There's 2 set screws in here that help keep tension on that. Again, with the tool they supply you with, you want to make sure that there's not tension on those, so you're not fighting against set screws as you're doing the install. So it looks like we have those out. Just breaking those to make sure everything's free from when we go to install it. Now here's where you got to be kind of careful. On your rear dovetails, sometimes you do need a file, and you have to file those down ever so slightly to get them to fit. You want these to be relatively tight, but you don't want to have to beat it in with a sledgehammer either. So let's go ahead and just try and take a slide and see how everything's going. So no problem there. I mean, that's definitely not going to be an issue. So we're not going to need the file. Now we'll go one more time and clean everything off over here. Go one more time with our trusty swab. And what we're going to do now is apply some thread locker into the dovetail, as well as on the sight itself. And that's going to keep everything in place. Go ahead and slide that in. Get it centered where we want to. That's another thing that's relatively easy about Glocks. It's pretty easy to index these sights in the dovetail. For the most part, you're just trying to get everything to line up in the center of the pistol. And then we'll go ahead and tighten it down. So we'll take a peek here, try and get everything lined up. And then once we finish this, I'm going to laser bore sight it. Why still before the Loctite really sets up. We'll give us a little drop actually on our tool to go into the top of the set screw. Give that one a little pinch. Do the next one. Put a little bit of ass on these. Obviously, you don't want to put too much on them because we're going to come back and bore sight this after the fact. And clean it all up. That's pretty much it, guys. You got a set of excess big dots with tritium. Good night sights. Easy squeezy. So there you have it, guys. A set of excess night sights installed in literally what, 5 minutes? Really good kit. Great instructions. Comes with pretty much all the tools you need to do the install, with the exception of a gunsmithing hammer and a pair of pliers. But you know, I can't say enough. That's super easy to do. But
Yeah.